Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Welcome to Flixwatcher podcast. This is episode 37. Over there is
Helen.
And on this side is me. I'm Kobe. On this episode, we're talking about Force Majeure with fellow quiz team member Rob, who's a film editor extraordinaire, and John Lunny from Future Music.
Like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod and visit the website flixwatcher.tv for full listings about this particular show. As always, films reviewed in this podcast were available to stream on Netflix UK at the time of recording. There may be bad language and there may be spoilers. You have been warned.
So this episode of Flixwatcher podcast has been brought to you by Geo Productions, and I have to say a massive thanks to Geo Productions. They've been holding my hand on Flixwatcher with Helen and I with their superb sexual editing skills. They're producing podcasters and helping podcasters like ourselves, helping us sound awesome. So we really want to big you guys up. And they said, if anyone out there wants to be a podcaster and wants their help, then reach out to them, podcast@glpro.co.uk, and tell them that Flixwatcher sent you. And you'll get 10% off your first package, off your first order. So you've got nothing to lose.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Flixwatcher Pod. Today we are joined by John and Rob. If you would like to say hello, introduce yourselves, please.
So, John Lunny, I can hear me on Future Music FM. I've got a sort of fortnightly music show there, but also a keen film fan. And every now and then we'll do sort of soundtrack specials, sci-fi and so on.
And welcome back to the pod.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah.
This is number 3, I think.
3.
I'm Rob Garwood. I'm an assistant editor working in film and TV. Big film fan, always have been. Big TV fan. That's pretty much all I do, which is...
What kind of films and TV have you worked on?
I've worked on Doctor Who. I worked on the Doctor Who spin-off Class. I'm currently working on Death in Paradise, BBC One. Yeah, just trying to get higher up the ladder.
Yeah, fair enough. John, you chose the film. Tell us what it's called and why you chose it and what happens.
So, it's called Force Majeure, which I think in its native tongue is called The Tourist. It's a Swedish director. I think it's from 2014. And why I chose it is just because it was in a long list of films that I was talking to someone about sort of to watch. So I thought coming up with a new one, it sounded pretty interesting. So I thought this would be a good opportunity and excuse to actually sit down and watch it. It's about a Swedish family, husband, wife, and their 2 children, a son and daughter, on holiday, I think in France, on a skiing holiday. And it's kind of interesting because it starts off just a normal holiday, and then at one point they are sort of sitting out in a restaurant in the resort, and there's a controlled explosion further up the mountain because they're clearing snow away from potential avalanches and so on. And all the snow comes down the hill and ends up sort of big cloud of snow ends up engulfing the resort, and all the restaurant people get panicked, everything else. And as it all clears, you realise that the father has abandoned his wife and the 2 kids. He's run off to save himself. And they sort of pick each other up and everyone gets back together again. And he comes back and sort of sits down, sort of like nothing's really happened. And the wife is just aghast, thinking you've left us to this avalanche. And the rest of the film then effectively picks up the aftermath of that and the kind of the breakdown in trust and questioning the relationship. And he can't really accept that he did what he did and he doesn't remember it the same way as everyone else does. And kind of the impact it has on their relationship and then other people around them.
I think I'd like to start off with the point of his recollection of the events. Do you think he remembered it in a different way too? You know, it just happened in his mind differently, or do you reckon he was trying to kind of mask how pathetic he could be perceived by his family.
Because doesn't he stop to pick up his phone? He makes sure that he has his phone.
He makes sure
he's got his phone.
Yeah.
Important.
Well, I think it's probably a bit of an element of both, really, because it's when that's the conversation that his friend Matt Stross has with him later, that it was almost reactionary, and then that's, you know, I know this is talking about the ending, but that's kind of the, you know, the whole point of the ending with his wife is that she effectively does that as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's trying to make a point that men and women would look at that scenario differently, or the man is expected to act in a certain way, and he failed in that, or does that make him a coward? I don't know if it makes him a coward. It just means that he reacted the way that some people would react in that situation.
I'm not kind of talking about the way he reacted. I'm talking about how he remembered it, and because part of the problem with the arguments was that he didn't own up to the fact that he did something that he potentially shouldn't have done in the eyes of his kids and his family. But the fact he was kind of saying, we saw an avalanche, and it was fun, but no kind of acceptance of the fact that he ran away and left his kids. And I think that's one of the threads that really pulled away at his wife, was that he wasn't owning up to that fact. And I was wondering whether he simply just didn't remember it properly, or he just didn't want to accept that he did run away.
It all happened pretty fast.
Yeah.
But he definitely ran away. I think it's a really tense film throughout. The thing that struck with me is the kind of, it's quite emotionally charged, and some of the scenes, and it's quite a tense film. And I think that especially the relationship with him and the wife, and sort of disbelief, and trying to reconcile these two versions of events. And I suppose he's kind of torn. And I think when you first watch it, he's kind of trying to cover up, I think, and maybe part of him has convinced himself that he didn't do what he did. I think that's my initial take on it. But then he kind of breaks down, and it kind of the realization of what happened, because it's some of the stuff is fairly implausible, and some of the discussions they have, he just, you know, mentally just can't seem to get past that and accept what happened. But yeah, there's the conversation later on about, you know, how people do act differently, remember things differently, and that all comes out later on.
And it's brought to clarity by the mobile phone scene where he filmed it on his own phone, didn't it? It comes to fruition what actually happened.
Oh gosh, and the terrible drunken evening where the wife can't take it anymore, and basically the nice dinner with, so for the people that haven't seen it yet, and obviously spoiling it all for you anyway, two friends join them then during the holiday, and they get sucked into this slightly turbulent discussion, and I think a nice dinner in the flat turns into this sort of wine-fueled expose into what happened and exploration, and even watching it all again, he still can't quite accept it, or just suddenly then just shuts down and can't deal with it all. And in fact, it's affecting the kids as well, and then later on it all comes out, breaking down in tears.
I like the fact that it I mean, you talk about when the friends come, but there's also I can't remember, what's the name of Ebba's friend,
the lady who's having a bit of fun.
Who's having a bit of fun with the
Italian guy.
Yeah, well, she brings the American guy to dinner, doesn't she? And and he's, you know, Thomas is explaining it as if, it was no big deal, and then, you know, and she's like, and then he ran away, and that just turns into this horrible kind of
awkward moment,
and you know that you've either been that couple or been the other couple where
you're witnessing an argument.
Or you're having the argument, but it's not a blazing row argument. It's just a kind of nitpicking at each other kind of thing.
Because he's like, I had ski boots on, I can't run away. And he's like, and she's like, what do you mean you couldn't? You did it with ski boots on. You ran away with ski boots on. And that kind of argument is horrible to witness, isn't it, when you're on the other side of it? And I thought that seems quite interesting because they switched from speaking English to Swedish Norwegian at that point. So that
the American guy looks.
So the American guy couldn't. He was like, okay, something's going on here. I really don't like this.
Well, that's actually one aspect of the film I quite liked as well. The fact it was mostly Swedish for the family, but because they're on holiday somewhere else, then they're actually speaking English to sort of other people and so on. So it's quite interesting.
Was this set in France?
I think it was.
Yeah.
At least
What were your thoughts, Helen?
Well, it's billed as a comedy drama on the IMDb.
Black comedy drama.
Yeah. Again, it was one that I missed at the cinema and was on the list of films to see, but not really knowing that much about it. Because obviously the sort of poster and everything kind of does bill it as the avalanche being an avalanche, but it's not really an avalanche, which is kind of funny in itself, because when it happens, obviously you think there's going to be this big event and it's going to have this big physical impact in the snow, and that's going to be the way that it's going to affect the family. But as everyone realizes that it's just kind of powder and they all start laughing and they're all relieved, it's kind of then when the tension builds up and things break down, and then there's more tension as you come to the end of the scene. So at the end of the film, when they're in the coach, which is probably the worst bit of the whole film, and there's bits sort of here and there, and the use of music is particularly good.
Yeah.
It kind of adds this level of tension, and you're sort of sat there going, is something going to happen? And because they're on the Alps, there's always this slight element there could be more danger ahead that you're not really sure about. So it's a really, really interesting film, and it does kind of have slightly comedic moments as well. So it's a tricky little one.
I was going to say it's kind of the opposite of a modern blockbuster, really, isn't it? Because the modern blockbuster is apparently got all this tension. Well, some hope is intending to have all this tension, and there's like a big moment at the end. Whereas there's the big moment at the start, and then the kind of reverse tension ramifications from that in a way.
And the fact that the very last shot is just them walking down the road in a group, and I think the dad's then smoking by that stage, if I remember correctly.
He's smoking. He's got a bit
And
of a grin on
they're
his
all
face.
separate, aren't
Yeah,
they?
they're all kind of separate, but
Yeah.
they're still walking as a big group and everything else. Speaking about the tension, the one thing that really struck me was the use of sort of static camera shots.
Yeah.
Just fixed position.
There's lots of long shots.
Yeah,
as well.
and there's bits where they're kind of on the the sort of moving walkway, for example, and they're filmed all the way down from the end, going out past, and the dialogue's there. The camera doesn't move. There's bits in the hotel room where quite a few times, because it does different days, where they are brushing their teeth, and like the mum and dad, you don't even necessarily see their heads. You're just seeing them reflected in the mirror, I think it is, or thereabouts, and they're brushing their teeth, and the camera doesn't move, they just come and go. And I think that you're kind of watching it, and kind of really, this is really sort of little box you're watching, and all the kind of actions there, so it's quite...
I read that they did kind of. I read today that there was, in some cases, they did like 50 takes of things like that. Even though it's mundane stuff like brushing the teeth and stuff, they wanted it. The director wanted it in this particular tense way or mundane, boring way. So he just kept making them do the really mundane stuff over and over again. So they looked more and more bored, and that kind of racks the tension up through.
Yeah, I thought those kind of things were really real, actually. Yeah, brushing the teeth with the family. I did notice. Have you guys skied before? Are you skiers or snowboarders at all?
Yeah, I wish.
Once, a long time ago.
Because I'm a big snowboarder, and some of the shots that were made me very, very, very jealous. And
Well, he used to be a ski. He used to make movies for ski resorts, I think.
oh, did he? The director. Well, I can tell how, because the way he's kind of set up a lot of the shots, and that these guys are really good skiers. They're skiing on like really deep powder at some points, and also some of the shots you can tell the cinematographer and director really kind of thought about how it's going to work and play out during the course of it. And also shooting when it's a whiteout, when you can't see the sky and stuff like that. That's got to be really quite difficult to do as well. So I saw this in the cinema initially, and it took me to watching it on the small screen to actually more appreciate how it was kind of set up, because I think I was a bit more wrapped up in how the story was progressing. But I think it is actually really quite a striking and well shot film in a lot of different ways, I think.
I think going back to you reminded me of 2 points there, but going back to, you're talking earlier about the discussion around you're never quite sure what's going to happen, or the Alps, and one of the beauties of actually watching a film, I had no idea what's going to happen next, which doesn't often happen these days because things have been trailed so much before, you've got so much exposure. And one was, for example, walking towards the end, and in the Alps or on the bus, what's actually going to happen. And then the bit where the two friends go off skiing, off piste by themselves.
Yeah.
And think, actually, is this going to be a moment where there's real jeopardy and there's something's
You
going to
mean
happen?
Thomas and Matt's?
Yeah.
Yes, in deep powder, or are they going to turn on each other or something like that? It was that kind of. It was so much tension in the film, of if not very much happening sometimes. Thinking, where's it going to come from?
But that was them reclaiming their
manhood.
alpha maleness,
Yeah.
and then that all falls apart, doesn't it? When they're sitting down, and that girl comes over and says, "My friend really likes you." Oh, it's not you. It's not you. And then Matt almost starts a fight because he's so angry.
And
You think that's funny?
Yeah.
but it got to the stage where before don't know if I should say this or not.
It's spoilerific.
So-
we said at the top of the show.
The point, it gets to the stage where the kids have heard the mum and dad arguing, and the dad breaking down saying, "I'm a coward, I cheat at games playing with the kids," stuff like that. and the children are effectively losing confidence in their father, and it's all because they're old enough to sort of understand, but young enough not to be able to deal with it very well. And so the mum and dad presumably then concoct this thing where the four of them go off skiing, where it's the weather conditions are quite bad, and effectively the two kids mum sort of disappears, and then the dad goes back to find her and rescues her in quotes and brings them back to the children. So waiting in the middle of nowhere. And I actually thought at one point that that was going to be the end of the film. That I thought of this horrible dark moment where the mum disappeared. You can sort of just hear her somewhere up the mountain, and the dad says to the kids, "Wait here, I'll go and rescue her." And I thought for a moment that was going to be the end of the film, and just wait, and he never comes back, and the kids are there, and I got goosebumps thinking, no, don't do this.
They're going to end up like The Shining.
Don't make this
Or
the end
Mist.
of the film. It's actually a really dark, horrible end where the dad becomes the hero, and then never is like, oh.
And then the kids are lost on the mountain,
Well,
and then they
no,
take their own lives and eat each other. And
Well, it got to that place that anything could happen at one point, so thankfully it didn't go that way.
I think
Spoiler.
my favorite part of the scene of the film was when the two guys are hanging out together after the kind of argument, because preceding that, what's the main guy called again? Thomas. He has that breakdown in front of Matt and Fanny and his wife, and these kind of things come to light. But then Fanny says to Matt later on, "Is like, yeah, you would have done the same. You would have run away," and he gets really pissed off with that, and he can't reconcile, even though she's just like, "Yeah, I think you would have done it. This 20-year-old kid would have stayed with the kids, but you would have fucked it right off." And he gets really pissed off with that. So that day after that kind of argument from both sides is them both kind of dealing with their own spouses.
But then what's interesting about that is that Matt does step up to the plate at the end.
Yeah,
doesn't he? And I mean, I was looking at another essay on it today, and it was also saying about it was talking about that this film really shows the cracks in the facade of the happy marriage. And so Ebba is very judgmental about her friend who's cheating on her husband, and they have an open relationship. But at the end of the day, she's very happy, and she's the one that isn't fussed and isn't bothered about getting off the bus at the end. She's not the one who.
Oh, she's the one that stays on the bus.
She's the one that stays on the bus. So she's not stressed. She's not.
Yeah.
She's in a good place, and it's not necessarily open relationships are great and marriages are terrible. It's just saying that that honesty, I think, is something, an outside factor can affect your relationship, and then that can cause a rift. Whereas if you're maybe more easygoing and not, everyone harbours judgments and prejudices against each other, and I think that's what this film is about. Ultimately, it's about what you secretly think about your partner or the other people around you.
So that's the thing, is because, as Helen said, you think it's going to be, I can't remember who it was that said, but you think it's going to be one massive avalanche and the whole family's going to get caught up in it because that's the story of the film. But it is literally some powder snow and it kind of settles. And first time I watched it, I kind of thought, is this enough really to cause a rift in the whole family? But then your kind of point is that there's cracks in there, that this is just kind of opened up a bit more.
Well, it goes back to you talking about the Matt's and Fanny then later on. That scene's brilliant because there's the two of them in bed discussing it after the argument, and she brings it up like, you've left your wife and your kids, for example. Previously he's separated from his previous marriage, so you have a kind of history of running. And he's saying, no, but I work really hard. I support my family. And but I love that scene for a different reason, because it just keeps cutting out and he won't let it lie and then say, okay, fine, we'll leave it. And then the light goes off and then it comes back again. And clearly later on, they've been up for hours during the night and it's just really dug into him that he's like, is this what you think of me? And I've got my view of how I look after my family, but he was kind of really undermining that. So it's really interesting how it's kind of the relationships, how the knock-on effect and how it all affects other people.
Helen?
I also quite like the bits where they're sort of locked out or they're having their sort of mini arguments outside.
Yeah.
Sort of the cleaner or the janitor's just kind of like looking at them, and you can just see he's just going, another foreign family arguing, falling out on the holiday that's meant to be perfect. Well.
Throughout the film, Thomas kind of presents himself as not the adequate man for Ebba, because there's one scene where they're both outside and she says, can you tell him to go away, please? And he's about to do it, but kind of does it in a meek way. And it has to be Ebba that stands up to this guy and says, can you fuck off, please? We need some privacy. And there's other parts during the film where she has nothing but contempt for him, I guess. So I think it's going back to your point there, Rob, about there's some cracks in the relationship and they've not been happy in some way, shape or form. The whole reason they're there is to get some rest because he's been working too hard, and this time away hasn't really helped to relax them. And
it could partially be that because he's such a workaholic, he's actually not very good at dealing with his family, and that's why he works so hard and spends so much time away from them, is because maybe deep down he knows he's a shit parent, a shit husband, or it could also just be that male female thing of the stereotype of men never want to ask for directions, and a man doesn't. Lots of men don't want to put themselves out there or embarrass themselves or inconvenience someone else by asking them to go away, for example. I mean, in a scenario like that, would you definitely walk over to
the guy
and say, "Fuck off, we want some privacy"?
I don't. I probably would. If my wife had suggested it. Yeah, if my wife was suggested
if your wife suggested it, but
I would. Yeah, but I would. If we were just having a chat, I don't think I would have thought to ask him to look away, because he was like a floor or two up.
Yeah,
and it would have just kind of tempered the conversation a bit. But if I was asked to ask him to go away, I would have said, make him just sod off a bit.
What do you think, Helen?
What would I think it's open to interpretation. I just think it's kind of interesting to have a film that the man isn't the hero, or he's up there as being the savior of the family, and also it's not quite resolved either. So it's not like he has these moments of doubt and he is a bit of an arsehole and he admits it and then everything's all right in the end. So it is a really interesting film. And I guess it's a film about relationships that we don't normally see. So yeah, it's really interesting. But I do think it is, I mean, we're talking quite about serious sort of issues, but I do think there are moments of humour in it, and it is a little bit kind of wicked in that it's sort of looking at this family that are trying to be so perfect. And in reality, things aren't quite perfect, and you do have these problems, and it just kind of brings them out in these kind of exaggerated ways because the mundane is pushed into the big arena a bit more.
But it does ask some fairly big questions, I think, and sort of about the relationships and honesty and everything else, and going back to the sort of discussion around what would you do and everything else, and the guy, his expectations for himself and what he ends up doing, and it was really interesting because Matt at one point talks about the ferry disaster. I think it was the Estonia ferry disaster in the film. I was really interested because I remember watching, it was either a 909 episode or a documentary about that years ago. And I had that in my mind when I was watching it earlier on, and the fact that they actually in the film they mentioned it around the expectations about what you do, and everyone wants to be the hero, it doesn't work. And one thing that really stuck with me from that, the only thing in fact I remember from that documentary was one of the survivors, guy probably in his 30s, being interviewed, saying about how he was clamoring over other people to get out and stuff like that, and how you want to be the hero, but he looks back and he's kind of almost haunted by the fact that he wasn't that guy, and he just got out and was one of the few survivors that made it compared with everyone else, and it's really interesting because it's a dark comedy in a way, but it does ask some. It's quite tense, and it's very much a sort of drama in that regard, and I think it does pose some quite interesting questions. And as you say, the end of it, everyone's kind of quietly walking down the road. It's kind of shot pulling back. It's quite a nice ending in a way. It just kind of leaves it open.
Perfect date movie, really.
The other one better is Shame as a date movie.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah.
Before we go into the popcorn and the scores, I want to ask everyone, what do you honestly think you would have done in this situation, in Thomas's position? I'm going to start with Helen.
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I don't have any children, so are you asking if I theoretically had children, would I have stopped to save them, or would I?
Yeah, I guess if you were exactly in Thomas's position with kids and a family, what do you think you would have done?
Well, obviously, I would like to think that I, as a mother, as a female, would have the instinct would kick in, and that I would protect my children. But again, we can only speak hypothetically.
Rob?
Well, I've actually got a child, so I feel like I have to give a particular answer, or my wife's going to kick my ass when I get home. No, I think in that scenario, I would run, but make sure I grab them as I run.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I'm pretty sure I wouldn't hang back and make sure they go first. I would grab my daughter and then run. Do you see what I mean? So yeah. I wouldn't actually consciously kind of turn to her and shield her necessarily, because I can't guarantee I would do that, but I know I would grab her and just pull her along.
What about the phone? Did you get that too?
Depends if I have insurance or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you got everything backed up to the cloud? That's the thing.
Yeah. I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
John.
Everyone wants to think they do the heroic thing, but who knows?
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of that film. That it's the instinct versus,
Survival.
Yeah, exactly. The kind of you can't even the mental process doesn't even work anymore, and the spinal cord kicks in, and just you start running. But I'd like to think so, but who wouldn't?
We'll go to the pub after this, and
Yeah,
some women will
put
chat
on
us up,
some
and
ski boots and practice running, see how easy it is.
we'll be alpha males. Come on, Copes.
What's that?
Well, you haven't answered.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'd like to think I would do what you do. Just grab the kids and literally, if I'm pulling their arm out of the socket to get them out of there, and save myself at the same time. I think that's realistically why I think I'd do. But yeah, it is a completely tough question. Time for popcorn?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do the popcorn.
So thank you to Popcorn Shed. Do you want to... Let's play Guess the Flavour, see if you can guess the flavour of this one.
Yeah, we didn't have popcorn last time you were on, John.
No, but
So we've gone up in the world. Popcorn Shed has surprised us with some lovely...
Whereas
lovely...
if I don't get this next time I'm on, then I'm just going to be very disappointed.
Yeah.
they can probably edit in the right answer.
So what flavours can you taste there?
Toffee.
No.
Yeah, this is kind of close. There's a big ingredient. Its name has got an ingredient in it. I wonder if you can guess what it is.
Its name has got an ingredient in it.
Yeah, they've got like cute little names. Well, the flavours in the name. So it's not just like sweet or anything like that.
Don't know. Butterscotch. Don't know.
It's pecan pie. Yes, this
Oh.
is a caramel with golden roasted pecans.
Give me a few more. I might,
Well, you grab a big handful. You take them one at a time. I've never seen anyone eat popcorn like that before.
We're trying to be delicate, non-alpha males.
Oh, very sophisticated.
Are you generally sweet or salty? As a rule? Your popcorn preferences?
Half and half.
Half and half.
Oh no,
Salty.
no.
No, salty probably.
What mixed?
No, salty.
Oh right, okay. Yeah, no, I would pick salty.
Have I ever done half and half? I think I might have done actually.
I've done
It's also a poetry reference. So.
We had a bag of popcorn in our house for over a year, which is salty popcorn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we just don't do
What kind of
salty.
house
But
is it?
yesterday I just kind of thought, let's eat this, and I didn't like it. I'm
It was a year old as well.
I'm a very sweet popcorn person.
Yeah, but I don't like popcorn that's just got like sugar on it, like you get in a cinema. I don't mind the kind of caramel ones or things like that, but
Yeah.
just sugary ones are just.
No, I'm a proper butterscotch,
Oh well, that's
butter
different.
kiss type toffee
right.
top thing. Yeah,
Right.
Cinema 1995 kind of thing.
well,
Showing
I still
our
do it
age.
now.
Oh, that's bad. Salty, definitely, all the way. Especially in cinemas. That's just my view.
So that you buy a big drink and you buy the combo deal for £18, whatever it is
We
in
know
central
your
London now.
games,
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah.
Let's go to the scores.
Caught in the middle of the popcorn eating.
We're so done with New Year, New You. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
First up, recommendability.
Yay!
On a scale of 0 to 5, how
And you can-
likely are you to recommend
You can
this?
go to decimal places. People have been annoyed that
Oh,
they've
wow.
tried to be too round with the scores. You can go to decimal places because
you
we're using a
feel the need.
spreadsheet.
No. If you...
I'd like to vote it pi 3.141, whatever the rest of the 10 decimal points.
Shall I kick off?
Yes. Yeah, it's your choice.
So 5.
5 recommendability.
Yeah, it's
oh,
brilliant.
straight out the gate.
Yeah, it's quite, really good.
Yeah.
I was going to go with a 4 because I don't think it's for everyone.
Who do you think it's not for?
I don't think it's for couples who have even the slightest crack in their relationship. But I also, I think there would be a contingency of, it's not like the average person who goes to see like Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman is going to love this movie.
Yeah.
So,
First of all, it's got writing at the bottom of the screen.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What is that? What is that? And no one smashes anyone into a building. So
Helen.
I'm with Rob with a 4. I did really like it, and I think it's really great and really interesting. But I don't think it's going to be for everyone, and it's 2 hours long.
Yeah, I don't
It's
think
quite long.
It doesn't. I don't think it needs to be that, but it does spend a lot of time enjoying those shots that it sets up.
It's not an unpleasant 2 hours, but
No.
it is quite long. A 2 hour subtitle film might not be for everyone's, with no
Action.
or anything really happens in it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. But a 4.
Yeah, I reckon a 4.1 because I like using decimal places.
Oh, I think now finding out who's lobbying for the decimal places.
Yeah, it's a good film, and I think most people I hang out with who watch films are happy to watch subtitles. So I don't think that would necessarily put them off. But I think some people would be a bit of a tall order. Repeat viewing score, John.
3, I think. Not because it's quite tense, quite dramatic. You wouldn't watch it all. It's thought provoking, but you wouldn't watch it all the time. Wouldn't go any lower than the 3 though, because it is still really good. So it's kind of a middle.
So I actually wrote 1 to 2 because I liked it, but I do not feel the need to ever watch it again.
Don't need to feel ashamed of your
I'm not.
score. Yeah.
I'm just John's looking at me like in that way that he does.
No, it's a different way, Rob.
Oh, no, that's fine. Then a 10. Yeah, I think let's go 1.5 just because, like I say, I just don't think that I don't need to watch it again.
Nah. Helen.
Not that I'm copying you, but I'm also going to go for 1.5. I've only seen it once. Don't really feel the need to see it again, but I may see it again. But I'm all right at the moment.
It's not the kind of film that
Yeah,
you're
you
gonna.
don't-
If it's on the TV and it's already halfway through, it's not the kind of film that you would continue.
It's not like when you'd
Yeah.
sit and watch and kind of quote along, or you'd like, oh, this really great bit's coming up. I'm going to really enjoy this bit. It's
Prince Charles should do a quote along.
What in the Norwegian, Swedish, or the English?
Yeah. Just the hardcore version without the subtitles.
Without subtitles.
Yeah.
I can speak Norwegian. They're speaking between. She's speaking Norwegian. He's speaking Swedish, and it's quite interesting seeing how they all kind of interact with each other. and
Oh,
stuff
is
like
that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's what it was because those places have so many different dialects going on.
Is the F1?
Yeah, the swearing again, wasn't I? Sorry. I think you're right. I think perhaps a 2 for repeat viewing score. I think it's a good film, but I think there's.
but you've seen it twice.
I saw it twice, but yeah, first time was at the cinema because I really liked the idea and I love seeing stuff at the cinema, and the second time was because
He had to.
I had to because you suggested it. So I'd watch it again, but I don't think it'd be high on my list. And if I watch it again after that, I'd be very, very surprised. Small screen score. You've all seen it just on the small screen, haven't you?
Yes. 4, probably. Works absolutely fine on small screen. I think some of those kind of closed, interior shots wouldn't necessarily have to watch in the cinema, but some of the big exterior ones might look amazing on a big screen, actually. So 4 because it works, but not 5 because I think perhaps some of the film might look even more impressive on a big screen.
I don't think it lost anything on a small screen, and that's all I watched on. I literally watched it on my phone.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
What? With the subtitles?
Yeah, I got in late. What? I have very good eyes.
What's it with a microscope?
Yeah, I watched it with a microscope. I did watch it with headphones, so that is,
Oh yeah,
so
that's
you
good.
get
That's okay. That's
yeah, because
forgivable.
yeah, it's not like it was on a bus. One of those people who just plays music on a bus without headphones in. But yeah, it was fine. I can't comment again. Like John said, I think that and like you said earlier, those landscapes and things. Because I have watched snowboarding films on big screens and things, and I think it's you get a lot out of that. But it certainly doesn't. I wouldn't say you have to have them for the tense moments and all the conversations and stuff. Apart from maybe to see twitches in people's faces or whatever.
Speaking of
And
which,
how does that equate to a score?
Oh, I wrote can't commit, so let's go 3.
nice.
I just saw your piece of paper there. You wrote like a little family tree on the back.
I did, yeah, just to because I'm terrible with names, so I was writing them down. Who are you?
Helen.
For reasons you've already said, I don't think you're missing out not seeing it on the big screen, and the mundaneness works for the small screen, but don't watch it on your phone if you can.
Yeah, that's a bit silly. I can see your phone is a small one as well. It's not. Yeah, that's a bit silly. I reckon 4 point.
Oh.
4 point. I've got the same size phone. I'm not berating the fact it's a small phone. I just think I wouldn't watch a film on that.
I watched House of Cards on it as well on the train.
Crikey.
I know.
I'd say 4.5. I don't think it because like I said, I saw it in the cinema and I actually found perhaps a better experience actually on a small screen. So I think,
Oh,
yeah. Engagement score, John.
4 again, probably, because good, but yeah, you've got these things that kind of, there's those static shots and everything else, which are tense, everything else, but there's no kind of rip-rollicking plot to keep you going through. But I think it does definitely draw you in. I think the characters are really interesting, and yeah, it was maybe 2 hours, but I don't think you really felt bored or felt like it was dragging, really, even though it is quite a slow film in places. But it's certainly some interesting issues and worth a watch.
And you, Rob?
I put a 3, just because I think, this kind of goes back to my point of repeat viewing. Is that obviously the first time it's very tense and things like that. But equally, if you're not in the mood for that kind of drama, then I can imagine you could just tune out.
And you're watching it on your phone.
And you're watching it on your phone, and it's
So
10 o'clock at night. So.
You're watching on your phone, so you couldn't do the typical thing of check your phone.
No, exactly.
To
So
do
that's,
stuff,
so that's a good reason for watching a film on your phone. But yeah, no, and like I said earlier, it's not the kind of film where if it was on TV and it was halfway through, some certain films you
Have to.
You
Shawshank.
yeah, like Shawshank, if that was halfway through, even if it's 12 o'clock at night and you've got to get up at 4 a.m, then you would still probably stay up and watch at least to a particular scene. Whereas this, I don't think I would.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a 4. I was engaged all the way through, but it's not kind of like a 5 because there are some slower bits, and I know that if I watched it again, it wouldn't have my full concentration. But watching it the first time round, I think you do have to give it quite a bit of attention because there's quite some subtle bits in it, and with the body language, and I think kind of also sitting through the really mundane bits is kind of part of the endurance thing of watching the film. So you have to kind of be in there during the really, really boring bits to kind of get what it's like being in this family.
I reckon a 3. Based on the double viewing, I think the second time I just knew what was kind of coming up, so I was kind of waiting for my favourite scene. I think was with Fanny and Matt's in the bed when they're kind of arguing. I thought that was really cool. Yeah. But also the with Matt and Thomas, the boys Jolly Boys outing afterwards. I thought that was quite funny. So I was kind of waiting for those bits, and that gives us an overall score of 3.4,
Pretty
which
good.
I think's fair.
Can I just ask, Copes, did you feel the 2 hours more the first time or the second time?
I felt 2 hours more the second time. I don't think it needed to be.
Did you notice it the first time? Did you feel
No,
like
I
it
didn't,
dragged the
actually.
first time in the cinema?
And when I sat down to watch this, or when I was preparing to watch this, I thought, okay, it's about 90 minutes. We'll sit down, and then you kind of sat down. It's like, what, 2 hours really? And it does kind of stick in places, I think. But I think it was a lot of camera shots that took a lot of the time out of it, and could have dragged. It could have been a slightly different film if it didn't have them, though. I think.
In fact, you could probably do an edit where you speed those up, or
I'll do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And you could
That's
probably,
exactly what you do.
could
That's your
probably-
job.
You might even be able to shave off 15, 20 minutes. I don't know.
I had thought it might be
Please
good.
do and share it with us.
I had thought I was actually from an editing point of view. I was thinking about as an exercise, kind of taking films that I thought were too long, and editing. And I thought of this when I saw the Meryl Streep, Alec Baldwin film "It's Complicated," which for some reason I watched with my wife while we were on holiday in Budapest, and that's over 2 hours long as well. And I just thought there's loads of long shots in that which you could just
Remove.
not lose anything from or shorten them at least. And it's just what.
That thing you do. Surely, if
Yeah,
ever
but that's
was
got
a film,
songs in it, so that's more.
Yes, it does.
It's
got
only got
song.
the one song.
It's got song in it.
Oh,
Mate, if you,
I haven't seen
if
it.
you
I-
start anywhere. Oh, really?
after
Oh.
hearing all you guys talking about it, I have no desire to watch it, let alone sit there and re-edit it.
I am on record saying I think it's a half decent film, and lots of people on the Twitter have said it's their favourite film. So, talking about the Twitter, we did reach out to people on Twitter to give us their opinions of Force Majeure. And we have Sudden Double Deep, who said we cover the film on their... So these guys are also podcasters. We cover the film on their recent triple bill. They both gave it 4 stars. So they're really big fans of it. Janiel Ramji says 3.5 out of 5 stars. Interesting premise and fascinating arguments. Could have done with that one weird-ass party scene without that one weird-ass party scene.
Oh, I like that bit.
Sequence.
Bit of
Yeah.
light
There's a
relief.
drone in it as well.
That's for you, though, isn't it, John?
Very weird ass.
Weird-ass party scene. Exploding helicopter. What's this pitch black comedy through your fingers as a marriage implodes in painful slow motion? 4 stars. And we all know Exploding Helicopter, and that's very high. Four stars
That's
for
quite,
him
yeah.
is very, very high for
Although
Will.
he does have random things that he loves
Yeah.
that surprise me every now and then.
And Rough Giraffe says, a very darkly realistic movie. Makes men say out loud, I'd never leave you like that, honey. And women think to themselves, would he? 4 out of 5 stars.
God, that sums it up quite well.
It pretty much does, doesn't it? And the final one, it's not a review, but it's from a good friend, Top Film Tip, who likes to give prescient and pithy Twitter reviews, which says, after abandoning family in instant of avalanche-induced panic, father faces nuanced ramifications, exquisite drama, #Force Majeure. So thank you very much to Top Film Tip for your contribution to this podcast. I think that's, it seems like 3.5, 4 stars, which kind of tallies in with what we were saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of recommend that you do check it out
Yeah.
if this is your bag. Or you like skiing, maybe?
Yeah. Or snowboarding, just snow.
If you like snow,
Yeah.
you'll like this film.
If you like snow and watching families on screen kind of fall apart. I think, thanks guys for coming in. Could you just sound us off as to where you are, how we can find you online, if you want to be found online? And
So-
say sayonara.
So, John Lunny, you can find me on Twitter at John Lunny or Mixcloud at John Lunny. And sayonara. Thanks for having me.
Rob Garwood. You can find me on Twitter as at Rob Makes Films. I don't go on it too much, but occasionally splurge on there. So you can hit me up on there. Don't look at me like that, John.
And on that note, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you very much.
Cheers guys. Bye.
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 Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. We had a lot of fun doing it. Please do check out all the details in the show notes to find out all the details about our guests, where to find them on Twitter, where to find their website, where to harass them. Don't harass them because they're very nice people. Thank you very much to our editors as always. Toby is the main guy who helms and carves our voices, and also hellos to Tony, Jay and Greg and everyone else at Geo Productions who we haven't met yet. Of course, please big up Mighty People for the tunes you can hear now and at the start of the podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod, and visit our website, flixwatcher.tv.